Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Okay, friends, then today we are going to discuss another institution, and that is state. Let me just repeat a bit. When you were discussing about world society, then suppose we do not have a definition. Definitions are always good. If you give definition of something by someone in your exam, here or later on in admission to management institutes or civil services, that is always better. When you say that according to sociologist S, something is defined like this, then it means you have the scholarship. If you write the same thing in your own words, we are not sure whether you are writing on the basis of common sense or you are writing after studying sociology proper. But still, suppose you do not remember the definitions, then you should look for essential aspects. What are the essential features of something? The word society. Now, if I do not know the definition of word society and I remember how a society was defined in the class, what are the features of society, then I remember that society is a group. Society is not an individual, society is a group which exerts its moral influence on all the individuals who are members of that society. It is an aggregate, society is an aggregate, and word society is certainly an aggregate. It is the biggest aggregate of human individuals. But aggregates, we know that aggregates alone do not constitute a group. Crowd, really speaking, crowd is not a group. It is unstructured, focus, narrow focus, no responsibility. Aggregates are different from crowds in the sense that there is an identity of being part of a group or part of being a society. One can say, and gradually that links that to the discussion that we are going to have today, state. Indian state as such is a new product. Indian state came into being due to the efforts of East India Company and later on the Crown, the British government, that attempted to unify different small kingdoms of India, tribal areas, and even then the whole of India was not combined ever. The whole of India, today's India, was never under the control of the Crown or the British Empire. There were free tribal areas, there were independent kingdoms. After independence and after inclusion of Goa, Hyderabad, Kashmir, we became a truly Indian society. Now, in this Indian society, we identify with India. That is why we are part of Indian society. As long as people identified with their small kingdoms or their tribes or their clans, family, clan, sub-clan, community, religious groups, sects, linguistic groups, cultures or regions, we never had anything like Indian society. The term Bharatvarsh appears in Indian mythological literature But that Bharatvarsh was a cultural unity, it was not a political unity. For world society to exist likewise, we have to identify with world society. If we do not identify with world society, if we do not think that we are world citizens, and we continue with our narrow parochial concepts of caste, community, nation, this or that, then there is no world society. But the moment we start identifying ourselves and we recognize that like us, others are also members of world society, then there is world society. Then there should be an interaction between members of world society. For a society to exist, there must be interaction between members. India is a society today because Indians interact, because after getting education in Kanpur IIT, you can go to work in Bangalore. After getting education in Coimbatore, you can come to IIT Kanpur for MTech. You may be born in Haryana and you may go to Calcutta for work. You may become a journalist, an activist, a civil servant in different states. So there is interaction. Today interaction between people belonging to different states is increasing, mobility is increasing, migration from one part of the country to other parts is increasing. This is part of urbanization, modernization, industrialization. So likewise, if the interaction of people remained confined to national boundaries only, nobody moves from one country to another, there is no international migration, there will not be any world society. World society does not make any sense if members of one country never interact with members of other countries. But if there is exchange, it may be mutual exchange, it may be exchange based on desires of some people to communicate with others, movement of artists, politicians, businessmen, traders, educationists, experts, philosophers, intellectuals, journalists from one country to another. If our singers become popular in Pakistan, if Pakistan singers become popular in India, if singers of both India and Pakistan are liked in United States, if singers of United States are liked in Africa, if there is interaction, then we can talk of world society, that yes, world society is in existence, because there is interaction between people. If the interaction is lacking, actually many of these things go together. If there is no interaction, how can you identify with world society? You treat yourself as the citizen of the world only when you have opportunity, ability, desire to interact with people belonging to other parts of the world. Otherwise, world society makes no sense. And like this, we can say that when these features are found, we can talk of world society or Indian society or subnational societies. And one, perhaps the most important aspect of or a defining feature of society is the existence of a normative structure or institutions. If our behavior is governed or if certain norms apply to us because we are human beings, we are members of world society, then world society exists. If there are no norms governing people belonging to different countries, if each country has its own norms, its own regulations. Today we are part of Indian society because the norms which govern us are of all India nature. Anybody can take JEE, and when our minister is making new norms regarding admission to IITs or NITs, that is of all India nature. Then the norms that we are developing in different fields are governing behavior of all the Indians. VAT, value added tax, VAT governs the whole of India. Actually, sometimes we say that in India, you have both the processes of integration and disintegration. While politically speaking, there is sort of disintegration and demand for smaller and separate states at several places. Bundelkhand wants to be separated. Some people think Bundelkhand wants to be separated. Some people think that people of Andhra want to get divided into 3 states. Like this, there are several other, Nagaland. Nagas want a separate place for them. Kukis want a separate place for them. Kukis think that Nagaland has been given to Nagas and interests of Kukis are suffering. Like this, there are different kinds of demands for political. In a way, there is some degree of political disintegration, though one can also argue that there is more political integration. Today, our Chief of Election Commissioner governs political behavior of all the Indians. And when we enforce the norms of elections by using propaganda, Office of Election Commissioner, Judiciary, Police, if needed armed forces, awareness, campaigns, we make use of singers, poets, writers to encourage people to vote. This shows that the whole India is politically integrating, because the same processes are at work in all parts of the country. But still, one can say that there are also processes of disintegration. You can call them process of disintegration or decentralization, depending on your preference. But we are educationally integrated. Students, after doing their 10+2 from UP, have been traditionally going to South India for BTech education, because the private engineering institutions came up in the southern part of the country first. There is VAT, which integrates the whole of India. There is Hindi cinema, which integrates the whole of India. So there are some parts in the country where, for political reasons at least, some people do not want to speak in Hindi. They may know, you go to Chennai and auto drivers may know Hindi, but they would not like to speak you in Hindi. And if they know that you are Hindi speaking, then they may even cheat. In place of charging 50 rupees, they will charge 150 rupees. That's a different thing. But we are getting integrated, because this Tamil speaking auto driver sings Hindi songs. He likes Amitabh Bachchan. He likes Shah Rukh Khan. He knows what are the important films of Shah Rukh Khan. So, if from one perspective there are forces of political disintegration in some parts of the country, secessionism, Naxalite tendency, Naxal problem, separatists and demand for separate states, demand for independence. But at the same time, we are getting integrated. And this integration is because certain common norms are being enforced on the whole of India. Now, if we have similar norms to enforce on the whole world, if the behavior, if the ideas, behavior, decisions of capitalists, where to establish industry, what to produce, where to sell, according to what norms, prices, exchanges, prices of different currencies, can be determined by one central authority, maybe United Nations, or maybe groups of nations, or maybe if some international organizations have a decisive role in determining human behavior. If there are international organizations like Oxfam, Population Council, which are working towards certain causes in all parts of the world, then we have integration. If we have United Nations Summit on Millennium Development Goals, and all the countries, all the signatories to Millennium Development Goals are expected to act in accordance with the norms of MDGs. And if all the countries are governed by what is decided in Security Council's meeting, in human rights organizations associated with United Nations, then we have a world society. So, world society will require fulfillment of all these conditions. At least this much has to be written. Now, today we will talk more explicitly on state, which is another important institution. We have discussed only one institution, and that is family. Family is certainly a very important institution of society. It regulates sexual behavior. It is associated with reproduction. It is associated with economic cooperation. It is associated with socialization. Family has the responsibility of imparting culture from one generation to another. Religion, values, many of these things which you know or which you believe in, most of your beliefs have been interiorized by you in the context of family. You worship Lord Krishna. Why? Because your parents believed in Lord Krishna. You worship Hanumanji because your parents believed in Hanumanji. You are a Buddhist because your parents were Buddhists. You believe in Mahavir Swami because your parents were believers of Jaina religion. Family socializes. And not only religious beliefs, all types of beliefs. Beliefs about caste, beliefs about governance, beliefs about Indian history, beliefs about ancestry. If your family tells, we know that 80% or maybe more of the Muslims are converts from Indian caste only. They are converts from Hinduism. Muslim scholars too accept. So many millions of Muslims in India and Pakistan are not the descendants of invaders. They are Indians, and some because of attraction of Islam, fraternity, independence, one God, some because they wanted to avoid certain taxations during the Mughal period. Jizya, for example, Jizya tax was one such tax which was imposed on Hindus for their protection. If you are a Muslim, you will not be charged Jizya. If you are a Hindu, you will be charged. So, sometimes to avoid tax, sometimes for emotional, spiritual, cultural reasons. You are an artist, a singer or a musician. You play an instrument and your guru is a Muslim. The relationship between student and teacher, disciple and guru can sometimes be so strong, after 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. You also convert to religion of your guru. Many of our great artists of India, Muslim artists, they got converted to Islam. Not because of compulsion, not because of any force. People say that Islam was propagated by sword. Yes, Islam was also propagated by sword. But it does not mean that all the people converted to Islam because of sword. Many reasons. Muhammad Iqbal, Sare Jahan Se Acha, he belongs to a family of Hindus, and they got converted to Islam. But the point is that if you are a Muslim, your family will tell you that our descendants came from some Central Asian region, from this or that part of India, outside India, and you start believing in that. Maybe after 1 or 2 generations of conversion, they will also give new titles. And a title like Ansari may represent that the ancestors of these people had come from Ansar. People start believing. Family. In sociology, one thing you must realize, that none of our values, beliefs, prejudices, philosophies are right or wrong. They have come to us. This is what the crux of sociology is, that our values, beliefs, likings, dislikings, attitudes, interests, our orientations, our orientation towards society, towards other people, these are all part of socialization. So once some people get converted to Islam, then after 1 or 2 generations, they also start believing that their ancestors came from outside. They have nothing to do with Indian culture. And there is no history of Ramayana or Mahabharata. There may be no history of Ramayana or Mahabharata, I don't know. But many Hindus believe. And once you become Muslim, you start disassociating with that. Family. Similarly, and if family does not exist, imagine that family does not exist. We do not know any society today in which the institution of family does not exist. So family is a functional requirement of individuals as well as societies. We can't imagine a society without family. If family does not exist, then there will be complete chaos regarding sexual relationships. Already, despite family, there is so much of chaos. Despite family, there is so much of problem. This morning, our television was showing that at 10:30 today, Andy Tiwari will give his blood sample. So despite a strong family in India, there are cases of extramarital relationships, chaos, people going to prostitutes, having concubines, multiple wives, multiple husbands, extramarital relationships, hidden partners. If there is no family, then how will sexual relationships be regulated? Then humans will behave like animals. There will be no society, no social structure, no mutual expectations, no agreement, no contact. Family is important, family should exist. Deviance may also exist, but most of the people, most of the time, confined to norms developed in the context of family institution. That's all. Society does not bother. Society does not want that all the people, all the time, conform to all norms of society. Society does not want that, because society must change. Society must adapt to changing circumstances. And there must be sufficient flexibility, dynamism in society. Otherwise, life will become dull. If all the people, all the time, conform to all norms of society, such a society would not be worth living in. So there has to be an element of departure from norms. Only we expect that most people, most of the time, conform to most norms of society. So family makes it possible. Economic cooperation. If there is no family, everybody will be individual. Economic cooperation will become impossibility. There will be more breach of contract, more corruption, more conflicts, more violence, more thefts, more dacoities. If family does not exist, then who will impart the values and norms of previous generation to the new generation? You may say that media can do, colleges, schools and colleges can do, universities can do, but there is a limit to which these institutions can impart the values of previous generation. Family is the most effective face-to-face, direct, small group setting in which norms and values of previous generation or the culture of the previous generation is imparted to new generation. Thus, like family, there are other institutions which are equally important. Normally in sociology we talk about family institution, political institution, economic institution, educational institution, and some expressive institutions like aesthetics, philosophy, science, arts, music. One can also say that media is an institution. Now we come to state. So, I am using the term state in the sense that it is an institution. What kind of institution? What does state do, and what is the difference between state and society? State is society, no doubt. It is a social group. But it is slightly more than society, more than civility. What is that specific thing which defines state, which makes state slightly different or slightly above the society? And that thing is monopoly over power. State is a structure, state is an institution. It can be seen both ways. State is a structure, state is an institution. And this institution is that which has monopoly over use of power. Now, what is power? What does monopoly over power mean? And whether state is one unified organ of society or society plus something, or it's a set of institutions, that we must examine. So, for that purpose I want to read something from some sources. One is the definition of state from a dictionary of sociology. Now, this dictionary of sociology defines state like this. You need not note down. I will not ask define state in the manner Oxford Dictionary of Sociology defines it, but you must understand what state is. According to them, the state is a distinct set of institutions, not one institution, but it is a set of institutions. That have the authority to make the rules which govern society. A set of institutions which have authority to make rules which govern society. It is a different definition than usually given in introductory sociology books. And I thought that I must read this definition because this definition will give you a clearer idea of what state in our country is. A modern state, a state in a plural society like ours. It is a set of institutions. It is not one institution. It is a set of institutions. And what is common to these institutions? It has authority to make rules. And rules which govern society. What does governance mean? It means that a state must ensure that the people act in accordance with these rules. And that also means that those who will act in accordance with these rules, they must be left free, and in some exemplary cases must be awarded, rewarded, must be given positive sanctions, and those who deviate from these rules, which state makes, then they must be punished. There must be positive sanctions, means awards, rewards, encouragement, appreciation, prestige, honor, esteem, to acting in accordance with the norms of society. And there must be some negative sanctions, punishment, imprisonment, maybe in some cases physical beating also, capital punishment, execution, discouragement, loss of prestige, loss of job, or punishing by not giving them promotions for those who deviated from the rules formed by state. Because society is a complex, so those who deviate from the rules of state, rules framed by the authority of the state, they are also acting according to some rules. But these rules are not the rules of the state. These rules are the rules of some subgroup, group, caste, community, clique, or some deviant subculture. So if the members of a dacoit gang act in accordance with the rules of the gang, it's not same thing as acting in accordance with the rules framed by the state. Everybody acts according to some rules, but rules are made by different groups, different cultures, subcultures, youth culture. Youth culture is an example that among students, sometimes there may be a craze for smoking. In company of some friends, you smoke. That is a rule. That is the rule of your friends. If you do not smoke in the company of your friends, they will punish you. The punishment may come in the form of not mixing with you, not taking you to cinema, or not helping to tell you how to download something from DC++. Yes. You don't smoke with them, you are violating their rules, and your DC++ is not working. Your friends will not tell you how to repair it. If you want your DC++ to be repaired, then you have to smoke with your friends. You have to follow their rules. State also has some rules. And state is a set of institutions, makes rules, and ensures that people act in accordance with the rules. So it governs them. There must be, when I talk of positive and negative sanctions, that people are awarded, rewarded, or punished, then there must also be some authority to punish people, some authority to reward people. There must be some power structure. So that power structure is nothing but a state. According to this dictionary, it has, in the words of Max Weber, a monopoly on legitimate violence. I wrote power. Max Weber said monopoly on legitimate violence. What is legitimate violence? A use of force or use of power may be seen as legitimate, permissible, right, or it may be seen as wrong, not approved, impermissible, to be avoided. When there is a violent conflict, when there is exchange of fire between a gang of dacoits or Naxalites on the one hand and police or CRPF on the other, both the sides are using violence. one form of violence is considered to be legitimate and another form of power is considered to be illegitimate, wrong, unapproved. As long as there is society, there is a political institution. There is no society in which there is no political institution or no state. Only long ago in ancient society, tribal society, without developed means of production, maybe in Stone Age or maybe in some original, indigenous, native, primitive tribes of Africa, America, Australia, in some cases India, you may find a society without a state also. Collective decisions, the whole clan, sub-clan or the whole tribe decides. And what do they decide? That if there is someone, I was reading somewhere that in Africa, where state has not penetrated deep into tribes, there are still tribes which are divided into clans and sub-clans and there is no government. But if there is some person who violates the taboos of a clan, the clan will abandon him. The clan will not protect him ever. And that means if he does anything wrong later on in life, then the people are free to do anything they like with that person. That person may be simply killed or they may torture him, they can do anything, they can burn him, person becomes helpless. But in modern societies, in modern state, India is a modern society, modern state, you have institutions and violence or power is defined as legitimate and illegitimate. So, if our army persons kill somebody in Kashmir in the name of infiltrators, we assume that they kill only infiltrators and not the innocent people, then that is legitimate. And if some infiltrators or if some natives who are not happy with anybody who is not happy with Indian state, Maoists, Naxalites, secessionists, Nagas, Kukis, Manipuris, Khalistanis, anybody who is not happy with the Indian state, they want a separate state. Students of Osmania University to have a separate state may often indulge in violence. That violence is illegitimate. Violence in itself is not legitimate or illegitimate, it is defined by society. So, a state has monopoly on legitimate violence. State has authority, we say state has authority, authority means legitimate, monopoly on legitimate violence within a specific territory. So, a state is defined in the context of a territory. Indian state or Indian armed forces are not authorized to deal with Naxalites in Bangladesh. There is a territory. State means there is a territory. Only if some other states ask for our help, like India sent its peace force to Sri Lanka to deal with the problem of Tamils, that is a different story. The other state is looking for our help, but otherwise we are not authorized to act in others' territories. Hence, the state includes such institutions, because it is a set of institutions. So, which institutions? As the armed forces, civil service, these are sets of institutions, civil service, or state bureaucracy. IAS, PCS, other bureaucrats selected through UPSC, direct recruitment, experts. Judiciary, from a lower level court to Supreme Court, judiciary. For specific cases, you go to lower courts. When interpretation of a law is involved, you go to High Court. And when due to certain exigencies, a law is to be interpreted in a way developing a new law in the changed circumstances, then you go to Supreme Court. Lower court for settlements of disputes in the legal framework of the state. You require interpretations, High Court. And more interpretations or deeper interpretations, different interpretations in the light of specific circumstances or new laws sometime. When Supreme Court makes a law, actually the job of making law lies with the parliament, legislation. But many times Supreme Court acts as though they are authorized to make a new law by interpreting the existing legal framework. They are not authorized to make laws as such, but they can make interpretations of existing legal framework to provide new legal directions, suggestions, interpretations. Bureaucracy, judiciary, and local and national councils. Local and national councils of elected representatives. Elected representatives. In Indian context, what are local and national councils of elected representatives? At the local level, you have Gram Panchayat. According to 73rd and 74th amendments to Indian Constitution, lot of powers, authorities and grants, funds, resources have been made available to local authorities. Gram Panchayat in the context of rural areas and municipal councils in the case of urban areas. 73rd amendment was about rural areas, Gram Panchayat, and 74th amendment was about Nagar Panchayat. So in both rural and urban areas, you have elected representatives. Gram Panchayat, you have Gram Pradhan. Then you have at Taluka level or a block level, second tier of Panchayati Raj institution. At the district level, Adhyaksh of Jila Parishad, supported by a council of elected representatives. Third level of Gram Panchayat. And in urban areas, we have chairmen of municipalities, mayors of municipal corporations. Then you have state, MLCs, MLAs, elected representatives, MLAs. And at the national level, then you have MPs, members of parliament. They are your elected representatives. A sum of all these four is called state. So state is not one single institution. Some people can define, like Max Weber defines state as that institution, one single institution, which has monopoly on legitimate violence. One single institution. But for greater clarity, I think this dictionary defines state as a set of institutions, and what are these institutions? These are. State cannot function, Indian state cannot function if you remove any one of them. You need armed forces for defense, for peaceful purposes, for many things. You need civil service or state bureaucracy. Everything cannot be done by elected representatives. Elected representatives will always be small in number, but at least in the form in which they are today, MPs, MLAs, presidents of district parishad, president of block level gram panchayat, and pradhans of gram panchayats. They are limited in number. They cannot be responsible for everything. So you have civil service or state bureaucracy. Then judiciary. In cases of conflicts, grievances, and disputes between groups, you need a judiciary and local and national councils of elected representatives. All these things together comprise a state. So in this context, you can also see our P. Gisbert's book begins by saying that a state has negative functions and positive functions. Negative functions are those which are essential, which any state has to do. Without doing that, a state cannot survive. What a state has to do? A state has to ensure that adequate amount of food is available. Either it is locally grown in your own country, within your state, your territories, enough food is grown. And food does not only mean wheat. Food includes wheat, rice, pulses, vegetables, fruits, everything. State is responsible for providing essentials like food, clothes, peace. State must control disturbances, must maintain law and order. These are called negative functions. When I read this first time, perhaps in Gisbert only, I did not read this way of defining functions of state anywhere else. Perhaps the idea is that there are some functions which are essential. Food, security, clothes, maintaining law and order, these are the basic functions. If a state does this, then what is so great about it? Anyway, state has to do it. All states have to do it. Positive functions must be seen, which are those functions which make negative functions more effective or more efficient. Better ways, development of ways of making negative functions more effective means reaching to more people, and more efficient means with minimum of resources, maximum of production. Examples would be social legislations, social justice, development of education, empowerment of women, promotion of interests of vulnerable sections of society, moral education, better governance, anything which leads to improvement in negative functions can be defined as positive function. See, without higher education also society can survive. But the expectation is that higher education will make people more efficient higher education should develop people technically, morally, economically, industrially. There must be all round development of people with higher education. That is why state promotes higher education. Otherwise, people can survive without higher education. So, there are negative functions and there are positive functions. See, negative functions are those functions which state is bound to perform. They are essential. No state can survive if the members of the state, if members in a given territory are not able to get nutritious food or the subsistence level of food requirements. People must survive. If people do not survive, if people are hungry, starving, if people suffer from epidemics, malnutrition, then the state cannot survive. The first thing is that the members of a state, members of a territory must survive. Then there must not be infighting. So, laws, rules and regulations. In case there are conflicts between different groups, conflicts may be manipulated or conflicts may be natural. If at the same place Hindus want to construct a temple devoted to Ram and Muslims want that the ancient mosque must remain, or now that ancient mosque has been demolished, it must be rebuilt. So, there is a clash of interests of two groups in the same state. It is state's responsibility to bring the warring groups or conflicting groups to negotiation and come up with negotiated settlement. In order to survive, a state cannot leave its groups on their own to decide how they will resolve the issues of conflict. Okay. So, food, shelter, law and order, defense, security against invasions, these are negative functions of a state. Negative not in the sense they are bad, but negative in the sense that they are bare minimum. And positive functions are those functions which make these negative functions more effective, reaching to more people, or more efficient. Better environment, better climate, better transport facilities, development of infrastructure for more development, raising per capita income, modernization of defense forces. Like India can be proud of, there was a time in 1962 when China captured thousands of kilometers of India. And sometime after defeating India on their own, Chinese went back. They did a great mercy on us. If Chinese did not want to go back, they could have taken thousands of kilometers of Indian land under possession. So, from that perspective at that time, China acted like a big saint on their own. There was no compulsion. Indian state was not so strong, Indian state was not so powerful to fight the Chinese. We could have sacrificed ourselves, and we were sacrificing ourselves. Our soldiers were dying, we were collecting money from civilians to collect arms and everything. But second time when we fought the Kargil war, then Indian state was so strong that it was possible for Indian state to capture the whole area by force, and no Pakistani or no infiltrator remained in Kargil. That was the show of force. That shows that between 1962 and now of late during Kargil war, state has done lot of things in a positive spirit. You know? This was the modernization of armed forces, spending more money on armed forces, raising their morale, providing for better facilities, better arms and ammunition, air support, and all that is needed. Supply management, logistics, everything. Indian state was more powerful, so state should not only provide for security, etc., it should also make it more effective, more efficient. That is the positive function.